Homicide 1914. The case of 21-year-old George Broadhead. George Broadhead was convicted of the manslaughter of 19-year-old Edward Cummings. He hit him on the head with a cane in the Black Horse pub on Price Street, Birmingham, on the 22nd of February 1914. Edward Cummings had gone into the pub with some friends at around 9 p.m. and was sitting in the smoke room with them drinking. George Broadhead had been in the front bar with his sister and her husband. There had been about 20 people in the front bar and about 16 to 17 people in the smoke room where there was singing going on. At some point the sister took offence to something and went into the smoke room to have a word with a man who denied that he had insulted her. The man had nothing to do with Edward Cummings, who was not a part of that group. The sister went back into the front bar and talked to her brother, George Broadhead, and her husband. George Broadhead then went to the door of the smoke room and looked around, and then went outside, presumably to get a weapon, and then returned. He then came up behind Edward Cummings in the smoke room and hit him from behind with a stick without saying a word. Edward Cummings had been wearing a cloth cap at the time and fell to the floor and never regained consciousness and died the next day. There was then a general scuffle as people ran around and avoided George Broadhead, who then made his way into the private part of the pub. The nature of the weapon was uncertain, and George Broadhead denied hitting Edward Cummings, but a foot-long weighted cane with lead in the centre and a lead top was found outside, which fitted the head injury on George Broadhead and the description of the weapon that people said they had seen George Broadhead hit Edward Cummings with. George Broadhead was arrested the next day, but said he had not been to the Black Horse that night and was instead in the Gaiety pub. However, he later admitted being in the pub. At his trial, he was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 3 years imprisonment.